Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. Today is episode number 1. Yes, we made it to episode number 1. Giving myself a big pat on the back. Had my very first interview, and this interview was with Jere Friedman, who is a gong master, a breathwork facilitator, a mindfulness and meditation teacher, and a transformational life coach. In addition to being an attorney, his kind of day job livelihood. On top of that, Jere is my stepdad. Yes, my stepfather. Jere Friedman, my stepfather. I'm a lucky guy. Jere's a great guy, a lot to share. I thought having Jere on the podcast for the very first episode would be a great way for me to kind of ease into this whole podcast host interviewing thing. I think it went great. I really do. We dove into topics in the realms of gongs and sound healing, breath work, mindfulness, and also just health and healing in general. It was a good start to the podcast, I think. And please, before I forget to tell you, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, which will allow the Alter Your Health podcast to just have a broader reach through the world, whether it's on YouTube or iTunes or wherever else you're tuning in from. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, review after, of course, you listen to the podcast, because it's a good one. So without further ado, here we go with Jere Friedman. So welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast. I am your host, Dr. Benjamin Alter, and this is our very first episode with a guest. And this guest is none other than Jere Friedman, who is really an amazing guy, a jack of all trades in many ways. And he is also my stepfather. And I thought that this would be a great person to have on the first episode. For me personally, just as a means to kind of ease into this with someone who I'm kind of more or less comfortable with. And and Jere is an amazing guy with a lot to share. So Jere, I want you to share kind of who you are in a nutshell and how you came to be in the field of health and healing, as it were.
Oh, cool. Great. Well, first of all, Ben, thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast number 1. It really is an honor and a pleasure, and to support you as you launch this exciting new aspect of your practice and everything. Oh gosh, what can I tell you and your audience about myself? I do have a lot of different facets. Not sure jack of all trades is the right terminology, but right now I'm spending a lot of my time and energy really enjoying supporting other people in their personal growth, and that comes in lots of different dimensions. But so a big part of my work these days is what I call soul-centered professional coaching. People talk in terms of life coaching, which it is. And I just really enjoy supporting my clients in transforming themselves and their lives in areas where they see the potential and possibility for growth, for enhancement, for upliftment. A lot of my clients, I'm working with them in various aspects of their, for lack of a better word, spiritual growth and development. Mm-hmm. And we can talk more about that as we go along. I've also been a master gong player and breathwork healer for many years. I've started playing the gongs about 9 years ago. We can talk a little more about that as we go along as well. These are, large round metal objects for people who aren't familiar with the gongs. And it's not the gong show. It's not, just banging or beating on it. It's actually a very, very profound, deep meditation practice or process that can really help the people that experience this, go to a very deep level within themselves. And it can be healing on many levels. It can be healing on the physical level, as well as emotionally, mentally, and spiritually for that as well. And then a few years ago, I also became certified as a breathwork healer, using breath, a particular breath process, again, to take us out of our usual state of being and into a much deeper level of awareness and experience.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a couple questions following up on those topics.
Okay.
As for the breath, I know how and when you got connected with that, because I was actually
That's right.
present. I was present with you when that was all happening.
That's right.
A breath work ceremony of some sorts at a kind of a, what was it?
It was like a yoga festival. It was called the Moksha Festival.
That's right,
in Santa Monica. Yeah.
So I know a little bit about that history, but I don't feel like I'm that as familiar with how you came to connect with the gongs.
Okay.
Would you like to share?
Yeah.
Well, you can, and if it's comfortable, you can also share, your other life and how you have, because I know Jere has a little bit of another life besides.
Well, I have many other lives, but what you're referring to is I've been practicing law for 25 years now. And that's been my main livelihood for 25 years. People who know me as a gong player or breathwork healer, when they find out that I'm an attorney, they often are surprised and say, "Gee, I never would have guessed that." And my answer to that is, what I do is not who I am. And who I am is really who I show up as when I'm playing the gongs or facilitating breath work or in my coaching practice. And that's more and more the work that I'm doing these days. So that's been a lot of fun. How did I get started playing the gongs? Like I said, it's almost 9 years ago. It was a Saturday afternoon. A friend was at the house with your mom, my wife, Ellen, and I. And our friend said, would you guys like to go to a gong bath tonight? And I knew what gongs were. I knew about different types of meditation. I knew about the Tibetan bowls and Buddhist bells and chanting. And so I figured that gongs must be, kind of somewhere in that neighborhood. I said, what's a gong bath? And she said, well, we go to this place and this guy will lead us in some Kundalini yoga for a little while. And then we'll lay down on the floor and he'll play the gongs for 45 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. And
no bathing suit needed.
No bathing suit needed. Yeah, right. You keep your clothes on for this. It's called a gong bath because the experience, what you experience is that the gongs actually vibrate your entire body. So you're bathing in the sound and the vibrations that are being produced. Anyway, we went that evening, and the moment that the mallet struck the gong the first time, my heart just opened up, and I said, I must do this. I just heard this calling. And I say from there on, it's been like going down a rabbit hole. It's been a real journey that has really transformed my life in many, many ways. It's opened me up to who I really am, authentically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know I've witnessed that. I'm curious about like the first step that you took to pursue studying gong or playing gong or whatever it was.
Gosh, well, I must have talked to the guy that played the gongs that night. The friend that was over that evening and invited us to go to the gong bath, she was also very interested in starting to play the gong as well. And so we just asked some other people who were already doing that. How do you learn? Where do you buy these gongs? We got connected. In fact, yes, now that I think about it, the person that played the gongs that night, he uh, told me about a book that I ordered that was a real good starting place. So I, read the book even before I got my first gong. And I ordered the gong, and it arrived on a Tuesday, and it so happened that that weekend, uh, a man who has been going around, Don Conroe, who is really the gong master. He's been going around the world, literally playing and teaching the gongs for about 45 years now.
Hmm.
And he was in town for a weekend. We call them play shops. It's not a workshop. It's a play shop because we're playing. We're not working.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just learned right off the bat from him. And the other part of it, though, unlike other musical instruments, the gong, we say that the gong is the teacher. And it's playing the gong is really for those who have not experienced it, it's unlike other musical instruments, it's completely unpredictable, and neither the player nor the listener really can know what's going to happen next. So for the player, what it's really all about is being present, being focused, and just listening to essentially listening to the gong, and the gong tells me, I know this might sound a little woo-woo, but the gong tells me what to do next, where to strike it, which mallet to use, how long to wait, all of that sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's actually a very intuitive process, and what it's done for me is it's really sharpened and deepened my skills in being present and being focused, and just really being tuned into the here and now, and that more than anything has really transformed my life, because
Mm-hmm.
like most people, and I still do, of course, but less so than I used to. Like most people, I used to live my life dwelling on the past, or being anxious about the future. And I'm doing less of that now.
Yeah, and it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're attributing a lot of that to the gong.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, I could go on and on and on for a long time. But what my teacher, Don Conroe, teaches, and what I've experienced, again, because these very, very powerful vibrations are coming through our body as I'm playing the gong, or for the listener that's laying down and receiving the gong vibrations. And well, I don't know, this might sound a little bit out there, but I really, I feel like, that I have experienced a very positive reorganization of myself at a molecular level.
Yeah.
Uh, Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I think that we need to go out there, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that out there is where everything, all the cool stuff is, all the magic is, and how
Yeah.
we grow and evolve,
Mm-hmm.
personally and collectively. I think we
Yeah.
need to all be going out there.
Yeah.
So feel free to go out there.
Okay. I'm there. I'm there.
Um, and so I want to kind of jump to how might, on any physical or metaphysical level, how might the gong support healing of the mind or the body, or both?
So, um, I'll start with the physical process and go from there. In a nutshell, there's a process called entrainment, which means that um, objects that are in vibration will entrain. They'll come into kind of a synchronization with one another. If you go on YouTube and do a search for entrainment, entrainment videos, you'll see videos of people where they take metronomes, the little timer, for
Right.
piano or whatever, and they'll get several different metronomes started, okay, and they'll put them on a platform that vibrates. Several different metronomes going at random, okay, and over time, and it's a very short period of time, they'll actually end up all coming into alignment
Mhm.
together,
Yeah, I
okay.
think I've seen something like that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. You can I've seen it like with 5 or even 32 of these things.
So
Okay,
do you, so
yeah.
do you, so how does that happen? How does that come to happen?
It's you know what it's just there's just a physical. I'm really not capable of fully explaining it.
You're not the physicist.
I'm not the physicist that can explain it, other than these bodies that are in vibration, uh, when they can vibrate together, there's just a tendency that they ultimately want to come into sync.
Hmm.
Okay, now uh, everything, matter vibrates, whether it's a rock, a planet, a tree, a human being, or whatever. And in fact, every cell and molecule in our body, our organs, they vibrate.
Hmm.
And they have an optimal vibration. If they're in peak performance or peak health, they're going to vibrate at an optimal frequency. So when we're laying there or sitting there enjoying the gong vibrations, and the vibrations are passing through our bodies, and over time, because of our lifestyle, because of our diet, because of stress that we encounter, our organs, our cells, they get off balance. They get out of the optimal frequency, and they're vibrating at a different rate.
Hmm.
As these gong vibrations are passing through the body, and the vibrations are all across the spectrum, our our organs or molecules or whatever, cells, they might notice a vibration passing through and say, oh, wait a minute, I know that vibration. That's my optimal vibration. And so we can come back into alignment with
Hmm.
those vibrations, just like the metronomes.
Hmm.
So after laying down and experiencing the gong vibrations for a while, we get up, and on a physical level, we can feel much more relaxed, much more in tune. It's kind of like I call it like a reboot. Okay,
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
uh,
also envisioning like a tune-up.
a tune-up. That's it. That's exactly what it is.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. And I've had people. And listen, I don't want to make claims of healing powers or healing properties. But I have had people after a gong bath say, gee, you know what? I came in with a migraine and it's gone now. I came in and my shoulder was aching and it feels better now, stuff like that. So it doesn't always happen, and it certainly doesn't happen for everyone. And I think if nothing else, for a lot of people, just slowing down and relaxing for a little while is beneficial to them. The other thing is what happens in the gong bath is because the sounds of the gongs are so unpredictable, our conscious mind cannot make sense out of it. It's not like listening to a song and we can kind of follow along the melody and the harmonies are nice and it's got a rhythm to it and our conscious mind can follow along. Oh, and there might be a change along the way, but our conscious mind can quickly adjust to that and keep up with it. And it's all, pretty logical. That's the way most music goes. The gongs aren't logical like that. And that's really kind of confusing to the conscious mind. And after some period of time, and it can be very short, what often happens is the conscious mind just says, I can't make sense of this. I give up. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the conscious mind turns off. That allows our subconscious and unconscious parts of our mind to open up and to release, to process, and to release stuff that we don't even know is there.
Yeah. In my experience, not having as much of experience as you do, but in all of the gong baths I've attended with you or other people, it's very rare for anybody to be awake through it. It's like people, regardless of my energy level, I get zonked out. It's like I'm hypnotized. And I guess, based on what you're saying, I kind of am. Like my mind just kind of shuts down and I'm there.
That's right. And that just allows a lot of stuff, like I said, that we don't even know is there. It's below the surface to process, to clear out. And again, it's like rebooting the system. So, yeah, people. Some people talk about having past life experiences, all sorts of things, just having insight or clarity into questions that they might have, or whatever. So,
yeah. It sounds like it just kind of, it does allow people to just access a deep meditative state.
Exactly.
Without trying, without.
Right. Yeah. Very good.
Well, it's also, interesting to me because the, underlying philosophy of naturopathic medicine is that the body heals itself. And I also do believe that the mind heals itself, and, or like our mental health is accessible in any moment under the right circumstances and conditions.
Yes.
And the gong just kind of clears out the muck so that we can access who we are physically and on all levels.
Exactly. And I like what you said about accessing who we are, because let's just say we forget, a lot of the teaching and a lot of the work that I do is just helping people become aware. Like I talked earlier, I practice, I'm an attorney, or I'm a husband, or I'm a father, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. Now, that's not really who I am. Those are masks that I put on to address, certain situations in my life at different times. But that's not really who I am. The real who I am is a constant that's within me, that's very quiet, but also very loving and very peaceful. And gongs or other forms of meditation just help us to access that. It helps us to quiet down all of the chatter and clutter that goes along so much, and really just get back in touch with that real essence of who we are.
Yeah. And, I'm just thinking of the fact that like me, I'll just speak for myself. I read and listen to so many teachings speaking exactly what you're sharing of, the essence of who we are is not we are not our jobs. We are not,
No.
our name. We are not any of these things. And we can understand that, I can understand that so well on a cognizant conceptual level, but having the experience even
Right.
for 5 or 10 minutes in a gong bath
Yeah.
just allows me to know that on a deeper level. And
There
then,
you go.
if I remember that more consistently throughout the day, because I'm not going to sit there being gonged all day, every day,
That's right.
even though that would be a good life too, but there's more to it. But we can just use those experiences in the gong bath as just like a touchstone, a
Yeah,
reminder.
exactly. I love what you just said. That's right on, Ben.
Mm-hmm. So kind of switching gears a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn about how breath and breath work gets woven into this
Okay.
for you.
Right. So, as you said, you and I went to a breathwork ceremony. Gosh, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. I can't even remember. And I was already playing the gongs at that time. And I had such an incredible experience with that. Uh, of really, like you just said, really getting in touch with the real essence of who I am. That I came out of that experience saying, wow, I really need to learn how to do this, uh, and incorporate it into with the gongs. Okay.
So when you say learn how to do that, like
Mm-hmm.
learn how to breathe, like what is breathing, what is breath work, and what's,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. No, oh, thank you. What I really meant was learn how to facilitate the breathwork process like
Uh-huh.
you and I did. It's a controlled breathing process. It's a 3-part breath. There's 2 inhales, an inhale into the belly, an inhale into the chest, and then an exhale. And it's just kind of done as a continuous cycle. Okay. So it's not hyperventilating.
Mm-hmm.
But it does get a lot of blood into a lot of oxygen into the bloodstream and into the brain. And again, that really unlocks a lot of blocked energy, a lot of blocked emotions, and allows those to come out and be processed and released. And a lot of people, myself included, say, well, it's kind of like a rebirthing process. Maybe not every time, but I have certainly on several occasions experienced like a rebirthing process, gotten in touch with some really deep emotional stuff, a lot of blocked energy in certain areas of my body, certain of the chakras, certain of the energy centers, and just gotten that stuff moving and released. And so, and there are a lot of breath work practitioners out there. There's many different styles of breath work. The one that I do is only one of many. But not very many people like me who combine the breath work with the gongs. And what I do is I lead people through about 25 or 30 minutes of the breath work, very intense process, and then follow that with about 20 minutes of gong bath, so that you can just lay there and let the gong sounds and vibrations wash over you and really integrate and process whatever may have come up in the breathwork process.
Mm-hmm. So beyond the oxygenation of the body. Are you aware of any other kind of physiological, aspects of the breath work?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not a scientist like you are. I'm not a doctor, and so that's really not how I approach these things.
Mm,
Again, my approach with this and all of the other work, healing and other work that I do, other than the law, and even then, somewhat is much more intuitive, really.
mm,
So I'm not so concerned with needing to know how something works. I more like you just said. For me, it's just more about the experience. Does something happen here?
mm,
And if something happens, I don't really need to know uh, the how or the why. It could be magic as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
I'm sure that there is a I'm sure that there are many physiological
Mm.
things, and perhaps you could speak to that.
Yeah,
You've
well,
done the breath work.
it's only been explained to me once or a couple times, and I haven't looked into this further,
Hmm.
but um, apparently when breathing through the nose,
Mm,
which is what healthy people do
right,
all day, every day, and that is the preferred way of breathing
right,
for overall health. We don't want to
right,
be kind of panting out of our
uh-huh,
mouth all day.
right.
But when we do breathe through the nose, we're engaging more of our brain, and
Hmm.
we're activating our brains more so. And like I said, I haven't looked into this further, but when we switch to a conscious breath through the mouth, we are actually kind of allowing our brains to turn off. um, which makes me think similarly to the gong experience. The brain just kind of shuts down to, not off completely, but doing down, no more monkey mind, busy work, that
Right.
sort of thing.
That's
Yeah.
okay. That makes sense. And one thing I didn't mention, but the other key part of the breathwork process, I said it's the three-part breath, but it's with the mouth open. It's
Right.
all breathing in and out through the mouth. And okay,
Yeah. So
I
like I
get
said,
that.
I don't know. I haven't looked into it much more than that, but I
Hmm.
could do that. Cool. So, um, through your work, I know you're doing group kind of ceremonies, group events
Hmm.
with, medium sized to large groups.
Hmm.
And are you also doing individual stuff with the gong and the breath?
Yep. In fact, it so happens I did a one-on-one gong bath for someone last night. I do the breath work one-on-one, and in those situations, I can actually, talk to the person. Like with a group, I can't, really
Mm,
focus so much on individual stuff. I just have to trust that the gongs are going to take care of whatever people need. But in a one-on-one, either a breath work or gong session, I can talk to the person and just find out, is there something specifically that you are, wanting to work with and heal, or something that's come up for you lately, that sort of thing. And, just allow that information to uh, inform my intuition, so to speak.
mm,
Once again, so that whatever healing energy needs to come in to whether the breathwork process or the gongs. For example, the person that I did the gong bath for last night, she mentioned that she has multiple sclerosis. It's not affecting her mobility at this point, but she said that she's had a lot of stuff going on in her lower chakras. Okay. And so one of the things that I've know and have learned through playing the gongs is the gongs do, different areas of the gongs do correspond with the various chakras. So knowing that, I could make sure that I played the gongs on the lower half of the gongs, which correspond to the lower chakras, and just let those vibrations, work that energy for her. So, and
Yeah, is it a different kind of frequency, or at the lower side of the gong to at the
yeah,
lower chakras?
yeah. I mean, one of the things that we learn through
Mm-hmm.
the gong yoga, and there is a yoga around the gong, is that the different levels of the gong correspond to the different chakras, so that the bottom of the gong would correspond to the first chakra, across the center of the gong would correspond to the heart chakra, top of the gong would be the crown chakra, and so on in between. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's just kind of one of those interesting things. Sometimes as I'm playing the gong for a group, I'll get to a specific area and find that, wow, the gong really seems to want me to play in this area right now. So I'll just go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, somebody must need some work in this area, and I don't know who it is or what it is. And I'll play it until the gong says, okay, time to move on.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you've mentioned a couple of experiences
Mm-hmm.
with people and their healing.
Mm-hmm.
Any other unique or profound experiences, either you yourself or with any of your clients with gong
You know,
and or breath?
yeah. I mean, I'll talk about the gongs and then the breath work. Uh, with the gongs, I personally have, and other people have reported experiencing a feeling of levitation. Feeling like the body is floating up off of the ground, or just kind of like the body just kind of not disintegrating, but
Which is
just
experiencing our formlessness.
yes, thank you,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right. Um, uh, Another thing that the gong has done for me is, oh boy, and I can't explain this other than, and Don Conroe teaches about this, um, but getting in touch with my essential nature and um, um, uh, the infinite nature of my essential nature has totally eradicated from me any fear or concern about death.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, I know at some point this physical body is going to die. Okay. That's a fact. But that is of no concern to me at all, because who I really am will not die. It has always existed, and it will continue to exist. So it's just kind of hitchhiking along in this physical form for a little while.
Mhm.
Um, so those have been some biggies for me. And the other thing, I mentioned earlier that um, reorganization of myself physically on a cellular, molecular level. Honestly, and I know you like really, like you're into health, and I had as a child, I was sickly. I had asthma. I had allergies. I had a lot of issues. And throughout most of my life, I've had various health issues. Um, uh, Honestly, since I've been playing gongs, the last 5, 6, 8, 9 years, other than just what goes along with my chronological age, but I'm in the best health of my life.
Hmm.
I'm not taking any prescription medicines anymore. My mood is better. I have good energy most of the time,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of the gong has either inspired or kind of paralleled a lot of just work and consciousness for you.
yes,
So
yes.
it's hard to say, chicken or the egg, if the gong brought it about, or if it's just kind of who you are evolving into.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
But yeah.
And then in terms of breathwork experiences, again, the rebirthing thing, really, yeah, just reconnecting with, who I am and where I came from and where I'm going, uh, has been a profound experience for me and others. I think the best way that I can sum it up, we had one fella came to one of our group breathwork sessions a few months ago, and he sat up afterwards and he said, I was in Peru a few months ago, and we were with the shamans in the jungle, and I did the plant medicine, and my experience here tonight was every bit as deep and intense as that, and a whole lot cleaner. So
Yeah. No, no side effects.
no side effects, right?
No
No
side
messing.
effects to the gong or the breath.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And you know what? And I have to say, what we're talking about, it's not for everyone. Not everyone likes the gongs. Uh, I have a theory about that. There are some people who really have a hard time letting go of control.
Hmm.
And that's what the gong or the breath work is all about. And for people who have a hard time letting go and trusting the experience, it can be very uncomfortable for them, and that's okay. It's not for everyone. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really makes sense. So is there anything that you could say or do to support somebody in letting go and making the most of that experience?
Um, Not so much. My approach, my philosophy is to meet people where they are.
Hmm.
And if someone isn't, ready for whatever it is, it's okay. At some point in this life or the next, or another one, they'll be ready for whatever experience they need to have. We have the experiences that we're ready for in this life, and we can either take advantage of that or kick the can down the road. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit
Hmm.
again. I'm curious. I'm planning to ask a bunch of people this question or these questions, and I'm
Hmm.
just curious to know your perspective on how you would define health,
Yeah.
because we've been speaking, mainly in the
Yes.
realm of consciousness.
Hmm. Hmm.
But so
Yeah.
expanding through that.
That's a great question. When I think about health, I think about health different today than I did even a few years ago. As I mentioned, I was sickly as a child, and oh my gosh, a lot of doctor visits and a lot of missed school and stuff like that, and even in my adulthood for many many years with various things. So I used to think of health as kind of like something out there, something um, to be attained, something. Well, if I can just get through this, or if I can get over that, or if I can, you know, get a medicine that'll help me with this, and it's something that's always further out there, and I really as I think about it, in the last few years, and especially as I've gotten into playing the gongs and the um, evolution of consciousness that I've been working with in the last few years, I'm more and more learning to look at and see health as kind of as you mentioned a moment ago. It's innate. It's like we're born with it, um, and so it's just it's more about, you know, if we're experiencing dis-ease or ill health or poor health, you know, what can we do to take away the barriers or the, you know, whatever is getting in the way of us returning to the innate good health that's already there for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in naturopathic medicine, we call it removing the obstacles to cure as
Oh, okay.
that's the first step to healing.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Because if we're not doing that, if you know, let's come up with an example here. If you know, if someone has,
If I'm beating my toe with a hammer, the
there,
first thing to do would be to stop beating my toe with a hammer.
yes, something along that line. You know, you can put ice on your toe and still beat it with a hammer, and you're, you know, or take all the ibuprofen or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. So stop beating the toe with the hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. And well, and then that leads to, so what is a healer, or who is it?
That is a great question, and it's actually something I've been wrestling with for quite a while. And interestingly, as you know, I've been working with a coach for about a year and a half, and you know, from the very beginning, you know, he kept saying, "Jere, you're a healer. Jere, you're a healer," and I had a really hard time with that because, um, you know, my conditioning was a healer is someone like you, Benjamin, someone who's been to medical school or nursing school or physical therapy school or has a PhD in psychology. Okay. You know, people who, you know, trained professionals with a diploma or whatever. And and then, you know, not only was my coach saying, "Well, Jere, you're a healer," but everybody else, you know, who knows me kept saying, "Gosh, you know, look at the work you're doing, Jere. You're a healer. You're a healer." And so finally, you know, I kind of came into acceptance of the reality that, yeah, I'm a healer, and a healer, it's way much broader than people who have completed some regimented program and have a diploma to show for it. So I guess in the broader sense, a healer is a person who, and this kind of gets back to how would I define myself, a person who supports other people in finding wholeness, which is health, you know, health being, you know, wholeness, peace, inner peace. Um, and whether that's on a physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual level, or all of those things.
Mm.
And so, you know, we haven't even talked about, I'm also a certified meditation and mindfulness instructor.
Yeah.
So as a meditation teacher, if I help someone to meditate and that reduces their experience of stress in their life and helps them to be more peaceful as they go through their daily life, well, that's a little bit of healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I hear your definition of a healer, to sum it up, as someone who facilitates an experience of wholeness for somebody.
And actually, so for myself, um, I don't feel like I'm doing anything except supporting the other person in finding their own way to
Mm.
their whatever healing is there for them. Uh, I don't have a magic pill. I don't have a magic chant.
Gong.
I don't have a magic gong stroke. Um, I can create an environment, and the coaching, the work that I do as a coach, I help people just I support people in advancing themselves in some area of their life, so that hopefully, when we're done with our coaching program, they are happier or more at peace or more productive or whatever. And but it's the individual that really has to show up and transform his or her life. They have to do the work. That's a big problem that I have with a lot of um, just how people look to their own health nowadays. Is, hey doc, give me a pill. Hey doc, fix this for me. It's like taking your car to a mechanic and saying, I need a new spark plug here.
Mm.
Um, but uh, I think we would all be a lot better, including people in your profession, if all of us would take more responsibility for our own health and well-being.
Yeah, we're in a world where that's increasingly difficult to do,
Mm-hmm.
and we're
Mm-hmm.
distracted in so
Mm-hmm.
many ways from that divine responsibility
Yeah.
that is, innate in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it sounds like the main theme is kind of cultivating inner peace, or through the breath work, through the gong. It's all kind of a means to cultivate a sense of serenity in the mind and the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like that has led you to step into the role, like you said, as a mindfulness meditation instructor, because that's a tool that people can grasp and master, and really, because like we mentioned earlier, no one's going to be sitting in front of a gong all day, or
Right.
you doing this breath work all day. But the meditation is something that can be, or the mind and mindfulness is something.
Mindfulness, and this is what I teach, mindfulness is something we can be doing at all times. And what meditation is really all about, what it has done for me, is meditation is not really about the time that we're sitting on the cushion or on a chair meditating. What it does is it trains us for real life. When stuff is happening in real life, challenging situations, challenging people,
Mm.
I can, because I know how, because I practice daily doing this, but in real time, I know how to take a breath and get centered and take just a moment in which to choose how I want to respond, rather than just reacting without thinking about it.
Mm.
And that has transformed my relationship, most of all with myself, but with other people. It's transformed my law practice. Okay, and it's actually made me a better attorney in a lot of ways, and people see it. And I'm talking to people, even my law clients, and they'll say, "Yeah, Jerry, you just seem to be at peace." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Now,
Mm.
Listen, I don't get it every time. All right.
Mm.
I have my moments when I lose it.
Good. You deserve
Uh,
your moment.
uh,
Yeah.
but, um, but the quality of my life experience is much improved over just a few years ago, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I think about the patterns that have been existing in my life and my, like good times, quotes, and not so good times. And there have been my personal meditation practice has been ebbing and flowing. And there were definitely 2 or 3 years where I felt very committed to a daily practice,
Mm-hmm.
and almost, to the point of I would call it overly committed, where I wasn't even being kind to myself in the process.
Mm-hmm.
um so, and anyways, I went through a process of being really committed, and then kind of letting go, and really just not even having a real regimented practice of sitting down
Mm-hmm.
with myself each morning. And but I would do it every once in a while, kind of when I had time or when I wanted, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to structure my daily routine around it.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the last 8 months or 6 or 8 months, I've kind of like, okay, like I feel this is important to me to kind
Mm-hmm.
of weave this back in, but with a more kind of gentle, compassionate, in a more gentle, compassionate way. And anyways, going back to, I've had like the outer experiences of the good times have been totally in sync with the daily practice. And I think of like some rough patches, and I was not I was disconnected from that daily routine, from that daily
Mm-hmm.
practice. And of course, in the moment, I'm not thinking, oh, well, this is because I'm not meditating.
Right.
And
Yeah.
It's more of like a step back, more
Mm-hmm.
global perspective
Mm-hmm.
of kind of the general patterns in
Yeah.
life. But yeah, I mean, I think it cannot be overstated, the impact of such a practice. Yeah.
I've heard what you just said. I've heard that many times from people that come to my meditation class,
Hmm.
and it's only, when you look back and say, oh gee, uh, when I was meditating, it's not that things in the outer world are going to be better. It's not like, just because you're meditating, you're going to get a promotion and a new car and
Hmm.
or go on a vacation. Uh, but it's just, how you deal with the stuff that's going to be there. And so that's great. One of the key principles of meditation that you spoke about is self-compassion. And so how we treat ourselves in meditation is how we treat ourselves when we're not in meditation. So good.
Yeah.
Self-compassion around that is a big piece of it. So good for you.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like to teach, people laugh when I say this, but I always ask people, a lot of people have a challenge for various reasons, and I understand having a daily meditation practice. And I ask them, well, do you brush your teeth at least once a day?
Hmm.
It's like, you can have a daily practice. You have that one. You probably brush your teeth more than once a day.
Hmm.
And if you choose, you can cultivate a daily practice of meditation. I say if dental floss is good, for your mental health, dental health, and meditation is like mental floss. It's good for your mental health.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, it reminds me, I've, I've noticed that one of my daily practices that kind of makes its way into the rest of my day is breathing. When
Mm,
I'm going to the bathroom, when I'm urinating, I'll breathe, have deep exhales. I'll have full inhales and full exhales. And I noticed like it's kind of just a natural thing that I do, but it it allows me to feel like I completely empty my bladder. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like such a good reset, that happens 6, 8, 10 times a day.
That's great.
Um,
Very
but
cool.
um, yeah, so moving towards wrapping things up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know if there's any, words of wisdom towards somebody who might be wanting to learn more about, because maybe not everyone has access to go to a gong bath or a breathwork ceremony,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but how might someone, you know, gain those benefits, or at least like scratch the surface of.
Right,
Yeah.
right. One thing, it is surprising actually. There are a lot of people doing gong or other sound healing therapy, and even small communities
Oh, cool.
have people do it. So I would suggest just do an online search. Type in gong bath, GONGBATH, either one word or two words. So you could put in gong bath in and then the name of your town or your city,
Hmm.
or sound healing, in name of town, or breath work. A lot of yoga places will have someone doing gong or sound healing. Often, because the gongs and the gongs that I do come out of the Kundalini yoga tradition, so it's very often at a Kundalini yoga center. We'll have someone doing gongs, and Kundalini yoga is a wonderful practice for those who like that. So. You can just try that. You're welcome to come to my websites to learn
Yeah.
more. I
Yeah.
have,
Please share.
I have two websites. The one that's focused on my gongs and breath work is gong2heaven.com. That's GONG, the number two, HEAVEN.com, gong2heaven.com. The other website is jerefriedman.com, and that will tell you more about the coaching and classes and treats and stuff like that I'm doing. Jere is spelled different, so it's
Yeah.
JEREFRIEDMAN.com.
Yeah. And I'll put links in
Okay,
places
thank you, thank you.
for people to find.
And I have not to get into commercial mode, but I do have gong recordings that you can order the CDs or download, and there are many other people out there with gong recordings, singing bowls, the crystal bowls. It's all wonderful sound healing technology. So I just
Yeah.
recommend you find it and experience it.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed your CDs and other sorts of music like that. And in my experience, I don't know if you could speak to this but it doesn't come close to replacing a gong bath for me.
It doesn't come close to being there, but I will say if you've got a good set of headphones
Mm.
and lay down comfortably and close your eyes, you can really go out. And I especially like to do that when I'm traveling on an airplane. I'll put on one of my gong CDs or someone, there's several others that I have, and put my headphones on and close my eyes. And when I open my eyes a while later, I feel wonderful.
Okay. Well,
So,
I stand corrected.
yeah,
I haven't done it.
it's
I
not the
haven't done it
same
with
as
the
being there.
headphones.
It's yeah.
I haven't done it with the headphones either, so that would
Oh,
make sense that it would.
yeah, definitely try that. Definitely try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the more like the noise canceling headphones.
Sure. Yeah.
That really works well. So.
Cool. And we talked about the breath work and the gong as just providing a reference point for people to remember
Mm-hmm.
who they are.
Mm-hmm.
who they're, have an experience of their essential nature. And then we talked about the mindfulness meditation as being kind of the bridging that into a daily practice or something. So any other words of advice or wisdom towards someone who's kind of stepping into a more mindful way of living?
Um, you know, um, the word responsibility is what comes to mind. Taking responsibility for one's own health, uh, uh, being informed, being uh, an active participant in one's health care, um, not just turning over and expect, turning over responsibility to the naturopath or the physician or whoever to take care of me, but really, taking full responsibility to have good diet and exercise and sleep. Sleep is probably, I think, probably the most important thing that is horribly neglected in our society. Um, and, um, and so just recognizing that uh, we can't abuse our body and expect, some potion or some pill to fix it. At some point, we're going to have to pay a price for that. But why go in that direction? Why not, keep the body tuned up as best it can before it even gets sick. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on the note of responsibility, specifically when it comes to meditation and mindfulness, I
Mm.
mean, I'm thinking about back to the point I made about the patterns in my life and how they correlate very strongly. The meditation practice correlates very strongly with the good times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have a tendency, our society, our world has a tendency to talk about their life is good because of something out there. Something out there is making the good times good.
Right. Yeah.
But
No.
it's really
Yeah.
something in here is making the good times good. And maybe the outer experience will come into resonance with the inner experience. And, but the inner experience is really the only place I have any control over. So
Beautifully said.
taking responsibility for what I can be responsible for.
Beautifully said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any other last, let's see, I think we made it through what we wanted to talk
Okay.
about and maybe even a little bit more. And I'm really grateful for your time and your sharing of your experience and your wisdom in the realms of gongs and breath and mindfulness.
Well, and I'm very grateful for you for inviting me to be your first podcast guest.
Yeah.
And I wish you much success. It's been just a real joy to see you grow from the little boy that I first came to know a long time ago, and here you are, all grown up with your medical practice, and it's very exciting to see you starting out with this. And I just know it's going to go and grow, and you're going to really, really touch and heal a lot of lives. And I use heal in the very broad sense of the word, because that's a gift that you have way, way beyond just the medical healing arts. But you really support people in healing in all other areas of their lives.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jere. And we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Okay.
All right.